Thomas,
Peter, what's up?
what's happening? Nothing, brother. I'm sitting down here in Florida, man. It's humid as hell out. Just sitting in a hotel room, man. Same furniture, by the way, in this hotel room in Orlando that was in the room that I was in Seattle. So I don't know if it's following me or they just got the same furniture in all their hotels.
Is that a Marriott? Is that a Marriott
Yes,
Courtyard?
sir.
What is it?
It is a Marriott, just a straight up Marriott.
Full service Marriott. So you get a restaurant, you get everything in there. That's good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
All right. So, hey, everybody, welcome to the 10-4 Tavern at 7:05 p.m. on Tuesday, November 18th, 2025. Doing real good. This is episode 21, Pete. We had a great guest tonight, Rob Tufano. Rob, I believe around 1990, he'll tell his story. Became a foot cop, went through the academy, became a foot cop. And because, most of those guys walk in Midtown, a couple guys drive. But, we'll talk about that, see if he got a car. But I got some stories because I know a lot of Midtown South cops. So in my research, in my background for Rob tonight, I talked to a lot of Midtown South guys. So we'll get some stories and we'll see if he's telling the truth or not. But he walked the foot post for a bunch of years, maybe close to a decade, and then became a news reporter. I believe he lived in Southern Virginia, and then he made his way to North Carolina, and then worked his way into Charlotte-Mecklenburg PD, communications director, PIO type stuff for the NYPD folks. That's Deputy Commissioner of Public Information type work. And then the comms director at the city of Charlotte. And then he has since transitioned to a role with his own consulting company where he does agencies in the United States and abroad. So great guest tonight, really interesting. A little bit deviation from the stuff that we've normally done, which I thought it would be great to bring a different and a new perspective. And he's going to tell you all about the media, all about how they do their things and how they work from their side. So we have a person who we trust to tell the truth the way it really is on both sides of it.
No, that's good. Hey, man, it's good to talk to somebody who's doing something after the job that's a little different than the normal folks we've been speaking to, because it goes to show folks who might be thinking of pulling the plug that there's other things out there, man. There's other adventures that they can chase and succeed at. So that's great.
Yeah, I think, I just got back from ICP 2012. You're at a conference right now, the National Homicide Investigators Association. Our previous guest a couple of weeks ago, Jeff Lewis from Miami, Miami-Dade homicide detective. He's running that show down there. So feel free to talk about that and what's going on with you, Pete. But when I retired and I left and I went to the vendor side of the technology providers for public safety, there was maybe at IACP 2006, 2007, maybe 50 cops that we will find each other and hang out with each other. I went this year in 2025. There were thousands of cops who now work for vendors in retirement that are doing really well for themselves. So, there is, I think the policing in general, the police department offers you the ability to do a lot of things, very diverse, NYPD more than anybody with all of the different skill sets, from aviation and special operations and finance and cyber and everything. And what I told my son, I would tell every single cop who's currently active, be the best at whatever you decide to focus on. If you want to be the best detective, if you want to be the best PIO and communications person, if you want to be finance, if you want to be strategy, office of management and budget, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Helicopters, aviation, canine, I don't care, but become the best at it. Don't just do it. And then you'll always be employed after the job. I don't know. You see any of that stuff, Pete?
Yeah, and look, the other thing I'd say is sometimes it's good to get pushed outside your comfort zone. Like I got tossed into training. I did not want to go into training. Turned out to be a gift. Sometimes when you do things that you're not normally inclined to do, you get to expand your horizons a little bit, So, yeah, in hindsight, man, those are some of the most rewarding jobs I had were the ones that I really didn't want at first.
Yeah, they force you into it because they know you're competent, and they're like, "Well, I know you're going to get it done, and I know you want to be out in the field, but I'm still going to bring you in and get it done, right?"
Yes.
All right. So
voluntold. We were voluntold.
So check out MD Modern Samurai. Modern Samurai. Okay. Lexus, what are you? Nexus with you. Good for that. Thank you. However, the way it's the car and the shampoo company. All right, not the. So we don't sell cars and we don't sell shampoo. But thank you, Modern Samurai. Appreciate it. Modern, thanks for that. Yes, I appreciate it. So let's bring this up, Pete. You said you wanted to talk a little bit about the Epstein files before we get Rob on. Got two topics today. Epstein files, and then an NYPD sergeant impersonates an ICE agent. We'll talk about that. I'm sure the rest of the Finance Unfiltered will go deep in that the rest of the week. Epstein, you said you had some thoughts.
Yeah, release them. Release them. Maybe redact the victims' names, and that's it. You know, and look, I guarantee, look, we already know some of the names that have been mentioned in there. Some of them are politicians. I know people talk about Donald Trump. You know, they got the CEO of Victoria's Secret, right? You got Bill Gates. You got Bill Clinton, apparently, in his flight manifest from Teterboro to his place over 20 times. There's a lot of powerful people that were traveling in those circles. And it would be really nice to see what was going on. Because, look, me looking at it with my background, and I'm not saying I have any inside information or anything like this, but it reeks to me, Tommy, of an intelligence operation where he was, I mean, he had his apartment in Manhattan was wired up to the gills. Supposedly, so was his place down there in the Virgin Islands. You know, I mean, my belief is that he was doing what they alleged that Diddy was doing, which is getting people on tape, fondling little girls, and then blackmailing them. I mean, here's a guy that has got infinite wealth, right? And nobody can figure out what the hell he did. And he had connections that didn't make any sense either. Here's a guy who was barely educated that was teaching at Harvard at one point. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me, man. It stinks of a intelligence operation, whether it's CIA, whether it's Mossad, whether FBI had a role in it. No idea. That's why it has to be released. And if it burns institutions down, any institution that would utilize little girls to entrap scumbags into these sorts of things deserves to get burned down and then build it back up again.
Yeah, well, you're right about that. I could not agree more. The U.S. House votes 427-1 to compel the Justice Department to release all of the Jeffrey Epstein files. We'll see what comes out of that. But I have such a hard theory on this that it's even crazier because you mentioned the intelligence community, the Mossad. I could go really deep on this. I think it is a full-on operation. Like if he was a pedophile, and then John and Eric talked about it, like not like 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds, but like the young girls, 15, 16. That still makes you a pedophile by definition. It's still inappropriate and horrible and horrific. And just, I mean, even if you're 18, 19, and 20 of legal age, and you're a 45, 50-year-old man, it's just wrong, right? And so. Yeah. This thing is way too big and way too widespread to be just some degenerate. It has to be. It has to be, in my opinion.
Who did they? He was in prison for trafficking in underage girls. So was Maxwell. Who did they traffic them to? You know what I'm saying? That's the thing.
Really powerful people, right?
Exactly, and that's why, believe me, all of these donors. I think there's going to be a who's who in this list. I mean, you listen to the discussions. Bill Gates' wife left him because the relationship between him and Epstein made her uncomfortable. That's kind of dramatic. Like, what was it about that relationship that drove her to leave one of the richest men in the world? There's just, it needs to be out there. And like I said, man, if it burns institutions down, even institutions that we respect in our country, if they're going to use children, right, even though they're teenagers, children to entrap criminals or to entrap rich people, then they deserve to get burned to the ground. I don't know.
Yeah. Modern Samurai. Megyn Kelly said he only liked 15-year-olds, so it's not that bad. What the WTF? Yeah, I heard that one too. Ridiculous, absurd. I don't know what she was thinking when she said that. I'm sure she'd like to pull that one back, but it's out there. Yeah, and just to finish up on the Epstein files, we'll see what comes out of it. Again, the House voted 427-1 today. We'll see. I don't have a lot of faith in it. But the other thing that we didn't talk about is him committing suicide in prison, as both of us being former homicide investigators, not loving coincidences at all, ever as a detective. I never felt comfortable with coincidences. Cameras down, staffing is weird. You can't convince me in any way, shape, or form that guy killed himself I didn't see the evidence. And I know some people have said that they wanted to see the files, and then they saw them and just trust them. I'm sorry, that guy did not kill himself.
Tommy, the day after he killed himself, I was on my way up to Manhattan to speak at the 9/11 Memorial Museum, and Ro Khanna, the senator from, I think he's a senator or a congressman from California, was on the train with me. And I noticed because we were in the quiet car, and that dude was on his phone and wouldn't shut the fuck up. And some old lady dressed him down. But he was going up there to investigate the murder in MCC. When does a senator get on a train and go up to New York City to investigate a murder in a U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Prisons facility, unless there's some shady shit going on there?
Exactly. All right, another thing that broke today, and it just broke today, and then I'm sure the executive perspective with Rob and Ron, I'm sure Sal, and I'm sure Eric, Marlon, and John will talk about it too. But just wild stuff. NYPD sergeant impersonates an ICE agent in a twisted revenge plot against a woman who rebuffed him. We have a sergeant in the New York City Police Department who meets somebody online, it doesn't work out, and then he makes believe he's an ICE agent and tries to mess with the family and tell them that they're going to be, thrown out of the country and they're going to be deported and all this kind of stuff. I mean, this is like every day with not only in New York City, but so many agencies across the board. Like a New York City sergeant. Oh, and by the way, here's an important fact. He lived with his father and his brother. He's an NYPD sergeant, still living at home with his dad and his brother. So
yeah. Well, he's the second guy. Wasn't somebody recently arrested, dressed up in full SWAT gear? Another NYPD, I think sergeant or detective, who was trying to get into the U.S. Open or something like that. I guess that's the new trend. But here's the thing: this guy doesn't realize. Hey, man, you want to be an ICE agent? They're hiring. They're hiring like it's going out of style. Instead, he's probably going to go to jail for impersonating an ICE agent because it's still a federal crime if you're a cop to impersonate a Fed. But yeah, it's just nonsense.
Yeah. So we'll hear more about that as it comes out. But that story broke today. So we'll do that. So listen, on the heels of that, let's bring in Rob Tufano. Rob, again, I did the intro before, but I know him about 10 years. I met through Jerry Kane. Those of you from the Midtown South area, transit robbery, who knows Jerry Kane. He also worked for Bernie Carrick. He was his main guy up in Carrick's office when he was the PC. So we're going to bring to the stage Rob Tufano, everybody.
Gentlemen.
Rob, how are you, brother?
I'm doing well. You guys are. You guys sound great.
Oh, thank you, brother. Good seeing you.
I'm glad we sound great because I know I don't look great. I have to sneak up on a glass of water, man.
You have a face for radio, Tommy. You have a face for radio.
That's right. That's what I got it for podcasting now, but they modernized it and put podcasting on screens. So I'm screwed, But hey, Rob, NYPD TV reporter, went down to Charlotte-Mecklenburg. We'll walk through all of that later. And then communications director for the city of Charlotte, which is a bigger job even. And then your own media consulting company, and you're all over the United States and all over the world. So welcome to the 10-4 Tavern. Really good to have you. So as everyone knows, it is a tavern. So what are we drinking tonight, Pete?
Because I'm in a hotel that has a rather crappy bar, I'm having a Miller Lite. Not a Bud Light, a Miller Lite. Talk about messaging.
All right. I've got a mezcal. I'm not even sure what the brand was. I ran down, grabbed the mezcal, iced it up a little bit, so I got a shot of mezcal for tonight. And Rob impromptu pulled together a screwdriver at the last minute, so appreciate that. Again, we are in the tavern. We don't endorse or encourage over drinking. Please, if you overindulge, do not drink and drive. Do not abuse it. If you've got problems, Pete, this is your chance. If people are self-medicating, please get help. So, Pete,
man, it's okay to not be okay. It's not okay to do nothing about it. So if you get something going on, man, talk to somebody, get some help.
Yep. So please do that. However, I'm still going to enjoy my mezcal tonight. So Rob, talk to us, man. Tell us what's going on, how you doing, and where'd you grow up, and give us through your early life before you became a police officer.
Grew up on Long Island, Suffolk County, Western Suffolk County, dirt poor. I mean, balls of your ass, dirt poor. Single mom, raised my brother and me. Didn't have a car, walked everywhere. She worked at a factory, in a garment factory, and she'd drop us off at my grandmother's. Every morning we'd have to walk there, and she'd take a cab to work, and just really humble upbringing. Grew up there, and she wound up remarrying, and we led, I guess, what you can call a middle class life after that. But that's how it all came together, I guess.
Wow.
So can you share what town that was so I can get a sense of where that was?
Where or what?
Yeah, what town in Suffolk County?
Babylon.
Oh,
yeah. Okay.
Babylon, yeah. Just not too far from Nassau, about 10 minutes away from Nassau County. And then we moved further out east, not too soon thereafter, after she got married, into what now is just a snake pit, Brentwood. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's my loose understanding, one of the big MS-13 areas on Long Island. So looks like we couldn't have gotten out of there quick enough.
Yeah. So you grow up on Long Island. You mix it up a little bit. How was it going there? And then at what point did you think, I'm going to become a police officer? Or was that even for me? Because I shared this when I was a guest on the Finest Unfiltered. Like, it was the last thought in my mind to becoming a police officer. And, my friends were like, we're going to go take the test. We're going to go file. Come with us. I was like, I got nothing else to do. And I took the test. Wound up loving the job, but that's a whole nother story. How did it become for you?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. And I go a step further. I think I spent a good portion of my later teen, early adulthood running from the cops. Never did I suspect that one day I'd actually be putting my hand up. No, there were a bunch of us on the island, buddies of mine, and we all committed to taking the test. Started out with 6 of us signed up to take the test. Only 3 of us took the test. And the other 2 doled out. They couldn't pass the drug test. So I guess I was the best guy standing.
Yeah. So what year was that? What year did you take the exam?
I want to say it was 88 or 89, because we got hired in 90, October of 90.
So was that big class? Was that big? Was it April 90?
Yes, that's when we graduated, April of 90.
Yeah.
It was class 71, 97, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I bet Ron Layson, when he was in Canada Assessment, was still signing off on those cases, Ron. So
Right. But to your point, that was an enormous class.
Yeah. Okay, so you get on, you go through the academy, you get out. My understanding is you went to Midtown South.
Yeah. I went to Midtown South, graduated, and that's where I met our mutual friend Jerry. Did Jerry tell you some stories?
I might have heard a few. But I'm not going to throw them out there. I'm going to leave them up to you. So, not everyone lands in Midtown South. How does that happen?
Luck of the draw, right?
Yeah, sure. And how was your very first day?
So graduation, Midtown South, we graduated from Madison Square Garden. So Midtown, that's on 34th Street. Midtown South is over on 35th between 8th and 9th. And obviously I have the family in town. So we put the family in a cab and sent them off. I think we're going to Giordano's over on the west side to eat. And sent them there in the cab. Jerry, you know Mike Sassock?
I don't.
Jerry's former partner. Well, he's my uncle. Mike's my uncle, and he worked in Midtown South too. So Jerry, Mike, and I were going to stop over at the command, drop some things off before we meet everybody else over at the restaurant. We're walking up 34th Street, and there's one of these knockoff little, I guess, clothing stores. That one of the many that dotted 34th Street at the time. And there's some kind of promotion going on. I'm with Jerry and Mike, and they're both South cops. Gets this guy was shoplifting, and he was giving the clerk a hard time. With Jerry and Mike go in there, and you got to mind. I mean, literally, we just stepped out of Madison Square Garden. I just finished graduating. It turns into a full-blown knockdown drag out. They freaking throw this friggin' guy over a rack of clothes. Shit flying everywhere. People along the sidewalk stopping. I'm like, this is my first friggin' day. Am I going to get jammed up on my first day?
Of course. What way to break in, baby.
Oh,
People forget, man, that policing was a full contact sport at one time. Now everybody's afraid, but there was a time.
Yeah, it was a little bit different back then, and it was eye-opening, especially on the first day. Needless to say.
So was the condition corrected? Everybody resumed patrol?
Everybody resumed patrol, and
98 Central.
I think the lesson was, hey kid, we call that the art of the shit can. So
Yeah. I used to know a bunch of housing cops, Pete, in PSA 3. I think they used to wear shirts, jackets used to say 3 to hard way or some bullshit like that. Yeah. They used to have a squash unit, and they used to work harder at squashing capers than they did and actually just doing what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, why? You're working so hard to just get rid of, just put the guy in bracelets and put him through. Like, just come on, guys.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the way it was back then, because, this was also the same time when we used to go to Brooklyn Central Booking, which was on top of the 8-4 precinct. And the line would be out the door with a cop and a prisoner, a cop and a prisoner, a cop. You'd be outside for 12 to 16 hours before you even made it inside the door. You had a line inside the parking lot. I don't think people could ever understand. I don't even think cops today could ever understand it. You would be standing with your prisoner next to you, holding them like this in your handcuffs for 16 hours before you even entered the building. And people would say to you, there's no effing way I'm even believing that. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. And we used to have escaped prisoners like one a day, and nobody gave a shit. You just escaped. You did a 61 for escaped prisoner, and someone went and found the guy. And that was it.
It was obscene. And Manhattan Central Booking was no different. There were guys that were sprawled out on lawn chairs in the hallways.
So good.
Yep. Remember the church pews at Baxter Street?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I tell you, because I did 6 months in Operation Pressure Point back in late 87, early 88. And the worst, Tommy, yes, you were there forever. If you got pulled off to do a hospital prisoner detail, you were gone for days.
Yeah.
I hated that.
Yeah.
Yes, it was money, but yes, I hated it.
So Jimmy Kennedy called it ka-ching, Tommy. And Rob is doing the money thing. We used to make collars, and we would wrap around, and I would come in the next day, and the people, or I would say to them, or they would say to me, "Did you do 15:45?" Well, yep, 15:45, baby, because we did 8:15, right? So 15:45, get 15 hours and 45 minutes overtime. You got it.
Yep.
Wrap right around, get back at it, man.
And if you
It was wild.
Getting lucky and landing prisoner transport, man, forget it. You're just lost in the sauce for days if you want to be.
Yeah.
So how about so any of our listeners who back in the old days, Sergeant Carswell from Brooklyn Central Booking, how that guy used to screw you over on the transports, the prisoner transports. And I have so many prisoner transport stories, man. We would go and walk up and like pull up with 20 prisoners in the back. We'd say, hey, we're getting McDonald's. And we'd like take money from them and go buy. And then we would just buy like a sack of, cheeseburgers and French fries and just throw them in the back and feed the guys and everything. It was just so wild, man. It was so wild.
Central Booking sergeants were not NYPD's best and brightest. In the Bronx, we had a guy named Horan who he hummed. He used to
Jimmy Miller, Jimmy Kennedy mentioning Sergeant Miller. That was the other guy, Sergeant Miller. Yeah. He was a big, heavy set guy. That guy used to make you do 25 sets of prints. He would just bounce prints all day long. Am I right, Jimmy? So anyway, I don't get it. Let's get back to Rob. So Rob, you're walking foot posts. You drive. Did you ever drive in Midtown South?
Rarely did I walk a foot post. I walked a foot post.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe for the first couple of months, and I got fortunate. One of the a spot opened up in one of the cruisers. I don't know, 6-7 months, which is unheard of. And the person who needed a partner asked me if I wanted to sit with him and jump in with him. I said yeah. And so it didn't take long at all. I got really fortunate and wound up in a car.
Okay. So what's that like driving in Midtown? Like, because like you could probably hoof it to most places faster than you could drive.
Yeah, for sure. And I worked day shift, 07:05 to 15:40. So I mean, the traffic was just at a standstill most of the time. It wouldn't be uncommon if a 13 or an 85 forthwith came over, and we'd go up on the sidewalk, drive up the sidewalk, and I mean, just like shit from the movies, man. People jumping into stores trying to get out of the way, but it wouldn't be uncommon for us to take the sidewalks.
You're like Bradley Cooper in The Hangover, right? When he said, when he said, "Oh man, I should have became a cop." He said they should have rewrote that line and said, "I should have been Rob in Midtown South." You know,
well, you know, but I hear all these stories and everything, and they're all cool. I was never the kind of guy. I mean, I was no superstar. This was a civil service job for me. I mean, my grandfather, you know, he instilled it in me. He grew up during the Depression. He was in Local 3, a union guy. So when he learned that I got that, you know, that police job, you know, holy shit, you would have thought I hit the jackpot, the lottery. You know, I said, you got paid vacation, you got 20-year retirement, you got health benefits, unlimited sick leave. This is the, you know, who's better than you?
Yeah.
So it was more for the, I guess, the perks. This wasn't like a calling to me. You know, I was the kind of guy that by June, all my vacation time was gone. I had other shit I wanted to do. I didn't want to be there, you know?
No, I hear you. I hear you. However, though, you did spend 10 years though there, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So and you know, we've all seen it, like especially a Brooklyn cop or a Bronx cop like Pete was. We all saw the sign every time we walked in Midtown South, the busiest precinct in the world, right? And certainly not the most violent, but definitely the most busy in terms of generating paper and reports. Like so like walk our listeners who either worked in the outer boroughs or are civilians who don't really know, like how busy, how fast was that place? Like what was that place like?
Oh, it's just incessant, and you know it wouldn't be uncommon to not get a get a meal break that you'd have to work through because so many calls were holding. To your point, it wasn't a lot of violent crime, but we had our share of robberies. You know, because big tourist area, so you know they're just easy prey, and so a lot of robberies, a lot of scams, a lot of shoplifting, petty larcenies and car break-ins and apartment break-ins and commercial break-ins, things like that. Subsequent to me leaving, there was just somebody, a football player, was a New York Jet was just shot up in Midtown.
Yeah. Yep.
A New York Jet was shot. Yep. This week. Yeah. We probably should have did a little more research on that, Pete, and got caught up on that. That's interesting because, the Burris and, and then, a lot of celebrities get, especially the rappers. And we have a future episode coming in January where we do the rappers world and stuff and everything. So a lot of celebrities get jammed up in New York City too, man. Like it's not uncommon, especially in New York, I bet too with you, Rob.
But yeah, I mean, not a lot of violent stuff. Great guys. I mean, really good. They could have. Oh my gosh, the reality shows they could have produced from that command. I mean, they were all from Central Casting. Funny as anything. Good men and women, committed, and which is humbling. I know I wasn't a superstar. I wasn't RoboCop or anything like these guys. But if I'm being entirely honest, I couldn't help but marvel at some of the people I worked with and just how committed they were to the profession.
Yeah, for sure. So like, at what point are you now doing this thing? You're making your collars. You're taking vacation by June. You're getting screwed for the rest of the year. When do you start realizing, okay, I'm probably not going to last the whole time here. I'm not going to do my 20. I'm going to start looking for other things. And how does that start playing out?
Probably around my 9th year. Had just gotten married. We had a baby on the way, and I knew I wanted to keep my wife home with the children. We wanted to have a couple of children. I knew that we weren't going to be able to do New York. I'd be working 3, 4, 5 jobs. Shit. I mean, we were living on Long Island. We had a little tiny house. I mean, back then, and this is 20 some odd years ago, our property taxes were like $12,000, $13,000 a year. And we had to have a tenant in an illegal apartment in our house just to help us offset the property taxes. So something had to give. It was a quality of life thing. Plus, I knew I had a desire to challenge myself a little more and do something different.
So how does one become a New York City cop, dirt poor from Long Island, New York City cop, struggling, trying to build a family? how do you get on TV?
Well, kind of a bittersweet story. Guys familiar with Glenn Pettit? He died on 9/11.
Yes.
Glenn was a friend of mine, and I'd met him, and we were just shooting the breeze. They were inviting me down to the video production unit on occasion to do voiceovers and some video production work. They liked my voice, and I wound up meeting Glenn down there. And I always had this odd intrigue with the media, and he had told me that he was freelancing for one of the stations. I want to say it was News 12 out on Long Island.
Oh yeah.
And he connected me with some pretty important people who opened some pretty important doors for me. And I got a gig, an entry-level gig. I was like a gopher over at the Fox News channel when I was still with NYPD. But you know, as medial and, you know, as inconsequential as that work was, the big takeaway from that for me was they allowed me to connect myself with one of their veteran field reporters and shadow him for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then they start letting me practice on camera and put a tape together. It's called a resume tape. And that's kind of what you have to send out to stations around the country. You know, it's kind of showcasing your work. So I got a bunch of tapes made. I start sending them out. Oh, let me back up on Glenn. So Glenn hooks me up, and that gets the ball rolling. For those of us who aren't familiar with Glenn worked in the, he worked down at the video production unit down at 1PP, and on 9/11, it's my understanding that he and I guess some of his team members had gone over to the Trade Center to get some video of, the comings and goings. And Glenn, I don't know if he went in, but he sure as hell got close enough where he was impacted, and Glenn, he passed away on 9/11. So that's the bittersweet kind of part of the story. I don't think that my life would have taken the trajectory. I know it wouldn't have taken the trajectory it had taken had it not been for Glenn Pettit.
Wow. Well, it's good to hear. So never forget. And then Modern Samurai, thank you. He must have known Glenn. Glenn was the man. Love that guy. Never forget, true gentleman. So thanks, Modern Samurai, for that. And there is life after the job, Mike M. So yeah, we can get a lot into that. I would love to talk about that too, because Rob's got a very interesting trajectory. You hear how fast it pivoted in less than 1 year. Things are formulating, and who would have ever? When you're saying everything started in year 9 and you left at 10. Like in year 7, could you have ever imagined where you would have been in 3 years from then? Yeah, so that should be encouraging for everybody. Go out and bet on yourself, everybody. Bet on yourself.
That's exactly right. So I get all those tapes together. I start sending them out, and I'm thinking it's gonna, this is gonna take, I'm brand. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm brand spanking new, and I could send 5, 6 tapes out, and I got 3 calls right away. And one of them was in Binghamton, New York, and I wound up taking the job only for 6 months. I stayed for 6 months, and then at the Fox affiliate there, and then I got picked up in Roanoke, Lynchburg. It's a hyphenated market, Virginia, as a reporter there. I did some anchoring work there. Hopscotched around a little bit before landing in Charlotte, North Carolina, as a crime reporter. Did that for several years here.
Wow. Forgive my asking this, but how's the money in reporting? I know, like these anchors, they get paid really well. You get these people that have, on these shows. But for a regular reporter in a smaller area, I mean, are you struggling? Is it difficult to get by, or are they paid pretty well?
When I left NYPD, I was making, I don't know, maybe 60 at the time. I left NYPD when I slid over to Binghamton to take that job in Binghamton. I was making $17,000. Now, when I skipped off to Virginia after that, I was back into the 50s again. But that's how it works. It's all based on market size. Like a Butte, Montana, you're going to start off at $15,000. You start off as a reporter in New York, which is the #1 market in the world. You'll probably $100,500. Wow. You'll start off as a reporter, and if you're sitting in that anchor desk, I forget what Chuck Scarborough's his final contract was. It was a multi-million-dollar a year contract, though, $6-7 million a year.
Wow.
For sure.
So to your point, Pete, that's the name of the game. Is you start off with these smaller markets. You kind of earn your bones. You wind up bouncing to big markets. That's where you get some jack. And then when you the real jack is when you get that seat. When you get in that seat and the anchor seat, that's where the real money's at.
Hmm. Wow.
So I have a lot of media relationships. When I was the detective commander, Kendra Farn, Channel 4 News, Michelle McPhee, the bureau chief of the New York Daily News, first female to be the bureau chief. She is a potential guest. Talked to her the other day. She wound up going back to Boston, doing the Boston Globe, and then writing about 6 or 7 books, including Mayhem on the Tsarnaev brothers and the Boston bombing, and a whole bunch of other really good novels, true crime novels. Fantastic. So I have a lot of relationships with media through the years because of the cases. And Rob, it was always no comment. I can't say anything. I can't go on the record. I can't do anything. So what I want, and I want to say that as we're talking about local news, like how you start messaging and who you tell in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, who can talk, who can't talk. But I want to hear more about your reporting career before you transition. Like, so when do you first get on camera?
I get on camera first when I was in
Binghamton.
every night, going live, and don't know what I'm doing. I should have sent you the tape in advance. That would have been kind of a cool.
Great.
Oh gosh, that was just a disaster. So yeah, immediately, and they expect it. It's like you're in the you're down in the minors. That's where you're going to make your mistakes. That's where you're going to get polished, and you're going to learn your craft, with the hope that by the time you get to your next market, you've got a couple of years under your belt with some familiarity, and you know what the hell you're doing. I didn't have the luxury of having years in that small market, though. I bounced right to a mid-sized market within 6 months, and it was hot and heavy. It was really hot and heavy. A lot of pressure, a lot of deadlines, a little bit of fish out of water kind of feeling too. I mean, throughout my whole career in media, I'm running with Ivy Leaguers and people who've gone to like prestigious journalism schools, and I barely eked my way out of community college, and I went back to school to get a degree in journalism. But through the grace of God, I don't know how I passed. But here, these are big dogs I'm running with. So and then my upbringing too. I came from shit. I came from nothing, and then these are blue blooders in my world. So this. If I'm being entirely honest, a little bit of inferiority complex and looking over my shoulder and feeling like I was being judged. And I'm sure I wasn't, probably all just in my head. A little bit of paranoia there.
But how much swagger did you have from being a cop in Midtown and knowing everyone's game and everyone's scam and knowing when you're getting jerked around and knowing the difference between seeing through bullshit? Because I will tell you that is one of the skills that I think I have without even trying was just, I read people. My wife says to me, "You just met that person. What do you think?" And she goes, "You're never wrong." 5 minutes. I get 5-10 minutes, maybe a half an hour with somebody. I'm like, thumbs up, thumbs down. And she's like, "You're never wrong." And I think that brings a lot to you going into that space, being the cop, being in New York, growing up in Brentwood and Babylon. And then that's real world experience versus these Ivy League towers and,
Yeah.
does that make any sense?
Yeah. I think the job really helps us. We develop we develop a really good bullshit detector, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
It's a survival mechanism.
Yes. Yeah, but to your point, Tom, I do. I think that's one of the big benefits of spending time in that profession, especially in NYPD. The way that you can measure someone up, read body language and mannerisms, and what's this person all about? What angle are they working? So yeah, I think it certainly translated over to the other profession in journalism. I was a no holds barred, take no prisoners kind of took that kind of approach when I was reporting, and I wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but management loved me. Management loved me because they knew I wasn't going to hold back. I mean, sometimes they didn't love me because we'd have to get on the air and apologize for some shit. but you know why they really loved me? At the end of the day, as much of a pain in the ass as I probably was to them, we got the eyeballs, man. We got the ratings, and at the end of the day, you know, that's
the only thing that matters.
Oh, yeah, that's it. You know, how many eyeballs are on you?
Let me ask you this, Rob, because I've traveled the country when I worked in federal law enforcement, and it's funny. Like one time down and I know Charlotte and Roanoke are not like the deep South. But I remember one time down near Fletzy, which is in Brunswick, Georgia, going into a bar and being told they wouldn't serve me because of my accent. They called it the War of Northern Aggression, the Civil War. That's what they referred to it down there. Was that a challenge at all for you, being a New Yorker working in the South?
You know, that's so funny you bring that up, Pete. I was so conscious of that when I left New York and was going to Virginia. I mean, Roanoke, Lynchburg, that is the buckle of the Bible Belt, man. I mean, that's where Jerry Falwell, that's where he lived at the time. That's where he had his university and Thomas Road Baptist Church. I mean, so yeah, it wasn't foreign to me to understand that I was going to a different place with a very different culture. So I was so mindful of that I changed my name at the first station when I was in Virginia. I went with Rob Harrington instead of Rob Tufano, just something generic.
We don't
I didn't know
down here.
I didn't know how was it going to land. You know, this Italiano guy coming from New York, big city slicker. You know, they would have looked down on that like nothing else. And Harrington, that was. It was the street I lived on, and when I lived in Lindenhurst, Harrington Avenue. That's where I got the name. That's
fantastic. It's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, pretty wild. So Roanoke, living straight up 81 in Charlotte. I live in Charlottesville now, so up 81. I've been down there, Lynchburg, Blacksburg with the Virginia Tech, but those places a little different. They're still flying Confederate flags down there, so.
Yeah, it's a different world. But I tell you what, man, what a way to live. It was such a peaceful, calm, no hustle bustle, just a real enjoyable way of living. It really was. You know, it took me a while to get used to it. You know, people saying good morning to you when you're in the supermarket. How you doing today? You're like, this guy just freaking lift the wallet on my pocket. You know, what's going on here, right? It takes a while, but it just brings the cortisol down. It brings the stress level down, and it's like being in the infinity pool. I really enjoyed my time there.
Yeah. So you get you work down there, and you work your way to Charlotte. How does that happen? Oh wait, actually, so we have some really interesting comments in the chat. People were asking how many are in the chat. So let me give you the numbers, Rob, because they're really good. We have 291 live viewers right now, of which 30 of them are on YouTube, but we got 265 or so live through X. So at about 48 minutes in, 43 minutes in, at almost 300, we're doing pretty good. So we'll probably hit the 400 mark before the end. So thanks for the viewers in the chat to be concerned with our viewership here. I appreciate the concern. Everyone is encouraging to everyone like, share, and follow. So please do that. Find us Unfiltered and 10-4 Tavern Podcast. Like, share, and follow, please. So, all right, Rob. So you make your way Roanoke, and you get to Charlotte, North Carolina. And Charlotte, just so everyone knows, Charlotte-Mecklenburg, big up-and-coming city at the time, growing probably really fast. You probably saw a lot of wild stuff. Jimmy Kennedy knows a little bit about Charlotte. I'm sure he'll chime in on the chat. Talk to us about landing in Charlotte.
And a completely different vibe. Where Lynchburg and Roanoke was very southern. Charlotte's farther south, but yet it's got more of a northern kind of exposure down here. I mean, gosh, my neighborhood is New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. There's just so many transplants. Be hard pressed to find a native, like a unicorn to find a native. So that was kind of my speed. You know, now I can do this. You know, a little bit faster pace, a lot more content in terms of crime and stories and things like that. They gave me, license to really show my creative side and live a little bit out of out of the box, you know, a little more rough and tumble, gritty. I was on the 11 o'clock broadcast. That was the moneymaker. That show, we were doing really well in the ratings, had great management, great team that we worked with. And yeah, I settled in, you know, pretty quickly and started building somewhat of a name for myself down here.
Really interesting career trajectory. But I think what is really going to start getting interesting is becoming a PIO and doing communications for the police department and what that messaging looks like. And what does it feel like from both sides? Having been a cop, you know what the cops are thinking, what the bosses are thinking, but then what does the politicians and the media want to do? What message do they want to send? So start walking us through like when these things start to build and how you start getting deeper into like protecting the image of the agency, the cops, but also telling the story and having the trust and the transparency that the community deserves. Well,
I think it warrants having a little bit of a discussion on the unceremonious exit that I made from the media. I'd spent about 4 years here and in Charlotte at the CBS affiliate on that 11 o'clock broadcast. And like I mentioned earlier, we were flourishing, we were doing really well. So well that I started developing this, I guess you could say like this swagger, you know, and looking back now, it really occurs to me, and it didn't then, that there's a razor paper thin line between being confident and being arrogant.
Yes.
And I think I landed more in the arrogant camp. I started to believe my own press, you know, just became unapproachable, heads getting swollen. You have all these people around you that are genuflecting around you, telling you how creative you are and how good you are. And, you know, after a while you start believing this and you get this faux sense of swagger, and it creeps into, for me at least, it crept into everything, you know, at my friendships, certainly my relationships with my children and my wife. I mean, I'm getting off at 11:30 at night, 11:45 at night from the show. You know, I got a wife and, you know, 3, 4 little girls at home. I'm out till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning doing God knows what with God knows who. You know, you got all the temptations and trappings that come along, all the drugs, women, and all the distractions, all the vices that come along with it. So this thing is just hurling out of control. And I remember one night I had a story that I was working on for a couple of days. It was going to be a good story about some alleged cover-up and corruption in a pretty big government agency. And I had a whistleblower who was supposed to come on the record and talk with me about it. And he pulled out at the 11th hour. I got a call from his attorney and essentially saying, look, my client sees no benefit to this. You know, he's got to think about putting food on the table. I get it, completely get it. But that put me in a position where, you know, without him going on the record, I got no story. So I had to tell my executive producer, Kim, I said, look, it fell apart, you know, my apologies. And she's like, you know, no worries, we'll make it work. You never want to be the guy who doesn't bring something to the table for a broadcast. You don't want to just show up with an appetite. You want to have something you bring it to the table. So I had nothing. So what that meant was I was relegated to what they call spot news. Essentially what that means is go out with your videographer, get into a news truck, listen to the scanner, and if anything cooks off, you'll go and you'll report on that. So we get in the truck and we head out to the Charlotte airport, and we're watching the planes coming and going, listening to the scanner. And we weren't out there for 15, 20 minutes before it starts chirping that there was a double shooting in Charlotte, in West Charlotte, not too far from the airport. So we hustle out there and you see all the activity. No sooner do I go to get out of the truck, the news truck, and a lieutenant walked up to me and he said, are you here for the shooting? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you may as well just put your shit back in the truck. Nothing going on, unfounded. I'm like, okay, you know. But here's the thing. I remember, I'll never forget this. I remember getting back in that truck, and this isn't one of my prouder moments, but I'm going to be entirely honest. I was disappointed. You know, I was disappointed that there wasn't a double shooting that I could cover.
Right.
Fucking out that for a second, because I did.
No, I
I
know.
was home that night, sat on my patio in the back, and maybe smoked a fat one, maybe not. Who knows? But what I did do is I took inventory. I said, Jesus, I said, if you have fallen so far down on the humanity scale that you're pulling for two people to be shot, just so you have something to contribute in the 11 o'clock broadcast, brother, it's time to make an executive decision and find another career. And that's what got me out, man. You know,
Brother, first of all, kudos for having a moral compass like that and for doing that self-assessment. But let me ask you, I mean, being in that industry, how many people have you crossed paths with that don't have a moral compass, that just would just throw caution, wouldn't care? You know what I mean? Like, how many of them sell their souls for that fame?
I didn't work with too many of them when I was still a journalist, but I work indirectly with a lot of them now through various departments that I'm contracted with in various cities. So I do a lot of their communication and media relations. So I'm indirectly working with a lot of reporters all over the country now, and it is astonishing the way that profession is turned. It seems to me, and this is just one person's opinion, but it seems to me that many of them, not all of them, but many of them have taken on the role of activists instead of journalists, and I don't think that's what the profession was intended for.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I'm just watching the news and just knowing some reporters myself. Some of them are great people, but there are some who I would just describe really as almost unscrupulous.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah, it's disappointing. And then what does it do? I mean, it kind of makes us all jaded when we think about the profession. I know it's just a couple of bad apples, but you know what that does to the bushel, and where we heard that before.
Yeah.
Like with our side of the equation with NYPD, you get a couple of shitheads that ruin it for everybody.
So I'm just gonna say my opinion, which is you know what they say about opinions. They're just like buttholes. Everyone has one. However, my opinion is that none of these politicians, either side, right or left, Republican or Democrat, throw an independent in there, none of them would be doing what they're doing if mainstream media today was doing their job as being as impartial as they should be. Even the Walter Cronkites, where we grew up when we were little kids, like they always kind of leaned left, but they were reporters and journalists, and they've lost their way. And I feel that there's podcasts now today. The Finest Unfiltered is probably here today because when John and Eric were calling them to tell them our story, and we've been wronged by the NYPD, we're wronged by New York City, tell our story. And they're like, yeah, we're not telling that story.
That's right.
It's like, but this is a massive injustice. Like, and they're screwing workers, immigrants, we're for the working people, except when you fire them because they didn't take a vaccine that was unproven and we had a religious exemption, or in Marlon's case, like, no, I just want to know more information before I do it, but I'm not saying I won't do it, but like, and then go, yeah, sorry, you're gone. We don't have time for you. And we all know, I mean, I don't know. I assume there's a whole bunch of people who had fake credentials that they got the vaccine, but didn't really get the vaccine. But those people got back on a job, right? And so my point is that's one example of just not doing their job and telling the story. And that's why Barry Weiss and Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi and all of these guys are now doing their own thing in Substack because they couldn't tell their story. How many years did Taibbi write for Rolling Stone?
Yeah.
Right? And so if mainstream media did their job, so did you see this coming before it really hit its crescendo in like 2020?
I didn't see the turn in their approach, their ideological approach. What I did see, though, was I was privy to the numbers. So I had an opportunity to see daily just what viewership looked like across a number of different markets, and it was all the same. People were trending away from conventional television, conventional news, that where they were going was more digital. social media, to your point, the Substacks, and I think that's what gave rise to, Barry White
Yeah.
and the others in Substack. If there was, if the media, were doing what they were supposed to do, if they were, if they were following up, if they were pursuing their careers and professions the way that it was intended. One of the bigger surprise to me is just how incurious this generation of journalists is, unless there's some kind of agenda that they want to advance. Then all of a sudden they're all ears, and now they're investigative reporters. But under ordinary garden variety circumstances, a very incurious generation of journalists today, and it's disappointing. But then on the flip side, I guess it's exciting and provides opportunities to the people like the Barry Whites and the Glenn Greenwalds and the like, Dave Rubins.
I remember Matt Taibbi's father was a staple in New York news back in the day.
Yes, he was.
Growing up there,
He was. Yeah. So you just said incurious, which I have come to learn in my later years. Probably one of the greatest attributes a person can have is curiosity. And so for you to say that the media is incurious is fascinating to me, because it's probably, aside from being a detective, it's probably the second most curious profession you should be. And the fact that they don't want to dig in and find this truth, that is mind-boggling. It's bananas. Bananas.
And the disappointing part is, and I don't want to belabor it, but the disappointing part is it's never been as easy as it's been to be curious. We've all got it now. I mean, we have AI, we have Google search and all this, and Chrome and all this craziness. When I was cutting my teeth as a reporter, we had to go and pull records down to court clerks, and down at government centers and town halls. And I mean, we had to work for it. All you got to do is push a couple of buttons, and it's right there at your at your disposal. And I think the only reason why they want to get on this is if they're taking the selfies and what outfit am I wearing today? Look at this cool dance I'm doing. It's kind of gotten to the point where it's turned into a bit of
It's narcissism
and clownery to a certain measure.
Yeah.
And maybe this is the old guy in me, and maybe I'm the purist and everything. I just don't remember Tom Brokaw, standing in front of his live shot doing selfies, and I just don't remember it.
Yeah, well, Modern Samurai, I have a friend who's a journalism professor, and she says that a lot of these kids see the dollars more like they want to be personalities rather than reporters. So perfect combination of Rob's comment and Modern Samurai's comment as well. So, all right. So, talk to us about, the cops, Charlotte-Mecklenburg. How do you message for them? Jump over, become part of Charlotte-Mecklenburg PD.
Well, after that little encounter on my patio, when I did that soul search, and a position, it wasn't too soon thereapter, opened up with Charlotte to become their communications director for the police department, and I applied. I already had a relationship with the chief at the time. We weren't friends, but I would say we're pretty close associates. I covered him a lot. I covered the department a lot as a journalist. And he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And that was a little bittersweet too. As much as I know how jaded that business, the media business, had made me, and how destructive it was, just my relationships, and even me personally, my health, and especially my mental health. I worked hard to get to that point in my life, and to just kind of, just abandon all that hard work and, get into that, I don't want to say the top of the food chain, but I was inching my way up pretty good. I knew that if I got out, I wasn't going back. And so that was a little bit of a bittersweet decision to make, but I'm glad I made the decision. So I jumped over to Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police, great police department. What did I say? I had 6 or 7 people that worked under me or with me in the office at the time. It was kind of a hybrid between civilians. I was a civilian, and then I had some ranking officers that were, I guess, under me, which that was a little bit of a tricky dynamic, having sworn personnel have to answer or being supervised by a civilian. So I think the only thing that I had going for me was that at one point I was on the job, and that gave me a little bit of street cred in their mind. Otherwise, that ship would have sunk.
Yeah. Okay, so set it up for the audience, like Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, the size of it, the population, and then the size of the agency. Kind of scope it out. Like, would you compare it to one borough, half of a borough in New York City? Like, so population size, what are we talking about? And then Pete and I can kind of, shape it up for, like, is it like Brooklyn North? Is it Brooklyn South? Like, how many? Give us the demographics and the layout for Charlotte.
About a million.
Okay.
Rapidly growing. I forget, they just had something online the other day about how many people are moving here daily. It was just it was striking. It really was striking. My understanding, it's the second biggest banking city in the country. You get the Bank of America, Wells Fargo, the whole thing here. Big airport. Roughly, last time I checked, it was close to 800 cops. They're about 200. The last time I checked, about 200 short. They've got a vacancy rate of about 200. They can't give it away. Not uncommon, right? I mean, that seems to be the story across the board for a lot of departments.
Yeah, but that to me is wild because it's still an attractive city. And especially, so let's call 2020 the tipping point, right? Where everyone boogied, not only for the summer of love, but also for the COVID stuff. There's a combination of the two. Both manufactured, in my opinion. Again, my opinions don't mean anything. It's just my opinion. But both manufactured. And I mean, I had people moving to Charlottesville, Virginia, sight unseen, buying properties. Like, that's what the exodus looked like. And I know Chicago had a migration to Tennessee, right? California had a migration to New Mexico and Arizona. And then the Northeast had the South, like Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, right? So those are real. So the migrations are anomalies. That's not a normal migration pattern. But to your point, the scale is astronomical. I'm telling you right now, 800 cops for 1 million people does not equate. That's not enough by like a lot.
And it's not that this is not a desirable area for law enforcement who want to lateral over. I mean, I work with departments in and around the region and sheriff's offices who get a considerable influx of laterals coming from NYPD. And there's been a handful, even when I was with CMP, with Charlotte-Mecklenburg, where they brought on some NYPD guys that came over. But I think what the issue is for them, and just looking at this from 30,000 feet, is it's almost got the same kind of politics here now attached to the department, to public safety, as it does up north. So it's kind of the same vibe as up north. It's just a little warmer down here.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You have elected officials who are a lot more progressive than they had been years back. A mayor and a manager, and they bought into the whole DEI thing, and even the police chief, who's the current one, a remarkable guy who's about to retire. But he got swept up in a lot of the politics and the wokeness of it, and I don't blame him. He's appointed. He's not elected. He's at the pleasure of the city manager. I get it. But I think that may be one of the bigger reasons why they're having such a difficult time pulling people in, especially laterals here, because it's kind of got that same woke kind of vibe that some of the other large departments in the country.
So would you say Charlotte-Mecklenburg right now, are they doing proactive, or as my buddy Eric Dim in the Finance Unfiltered family, invasive and intrusive policing? Where they're looking for it, or are they just reacting?
Well, I think it's more of the latter. I don't think they have the luxury. Most of the men and women that are on the line have the luxury to engage in anything proactive, because they're just a slave to that radio. I mean, 24/7. When you've got a vacancy rate as considerable as 200 plus, that really has impact on the people that are on the line. You can't get a day off, can't get a lunch break, can't engage in anything proactive. If it's and then there was a period of time when they were forced to do overtime anymore. So I mean, it's tough to engage proactively when you're just, you feel like just trying to keep your head above water most days.
Yeah, sorry, Pete. I'm muting us because we're getting a little back and forth. So I'm going to be muting myself and Pete as I hear it, and I apologize for that. So Jimmy Kennedy's saying 1,700. Are we off on our numbers a little bit? Because even 1,700 is still not a lot for.
Did I say 1,700?
You said 800. Did you mean 1,800 maybe?
I meant to say 1,800.
Okay. All right. So we cleared that up. Because I was going to say, when I said that, 800 is ridiculous. Even 1,800 is probably pushing it. Because if you think about, maybe Brooklyn North or Brooklyn South as two different boroughs, and, New York, Brooklyn's probably 2.5 million. And then, they have way more than 1,700 or 1,800 in each borough, but whatever. And we also know that New York has always had a per capita sworn membership is much higher. I've always been baffled by the size of agencies, even Chicago. But that being said, go ahead, Rob.
The kicker for me was when I got down here and I started meeting a lot of the cops with Charlotte-Mecklenburg. A lot of them, they hear you from New York cop, like, oh my gosh, that must have been so dangerous and everything like that. And I told them, and I believe this, I wholeheartedly believe this. I think what they're doing down here poses more of a threat or a potential threat than up there. It's single person units down here. There's no partners, and it wouldn't be uncommon to key up on a radio when you need back, and it's going to be a couple of minutes, Matt. Which probably seems like a couple of hours when you're fighting for your life. So I give them a lot of credit, man. They're driving single person patrol cruisers, and people like to think that this is Shangri-La down here, man. It's not uncommon to have upwards of 100 plus homicides a year, and houses getting shot into, and people that poor girl a couple of months ago on the light rail line that had her, she was butchered on the light rail line. It's not I wouldn't say it's an overly dangerous place, but it has its moments for certain.
I've said that before when I talk about cops from like small towns or really remote places like Alaska. I've talked to guys whose backup is like hours away. I've talked to Alaska troopers who've had to like deputize people on the side of the road to help them take someone into custody. Yeah, where in New York, man, you call a 1013, you could have 100 cops there in 5 minutes.
Before you even take your finger off the key, man, you got 2 or 3 guys, and then you got your partner there. My gosh.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I always have a lot of respect for the small town folks.
Yes.
So, Rob, let's talk about that stabbing on that Charlotte transit system and that female. I'm not going to get into the politics behind it, and male black stabbing the girl, a very Kitty Genovese type environment where everyone just stood around and didn't. But like, take us to the police department. How do they look at this? What is their response? How do they handle it? What did you see? What would you have done different? What would you have done? What did they do right?
I don't have any issue at all with the way that the police department, essentially, they were hands off because it really wasn't they've got a transit police system, a corporate security system that works, corporate police that work on that light rail. And when I was still with the department, I think we had a supervisor and a couple of officers that were assigned, but it's a staffing issue. However, you can't put a cop on every train. Can't put a cop on every bus, and it's not just limited to the trains. There's been a couple of shootings on buses over the last couple of months here too. So I don't have any issue. I'm neutral when it comes to the department. Where I had a big issue is with you wanted to refrain from the politics of it all. I'll dive into the politics. I had a considerable issue with local politicians, the mayor in particular. Couldn't wait to jump on this gives us an opportunity to really focus on the resources people need who are in the throes of mental health. Yeah, and I'm not disputing that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Where's this attention? Where's this empathy? Where's this sympathy? Where's this outrage for this poor girl, this young, beautiful girl? She just left a pizza joint, still in her pizza uniform. It's heartbreaking. Somebody said, and I don't know how true it is, I'd like to believe it, it was a good source, that the day that she became eligible, this poor girl, to work, she filled out an application and got a job. I mean, this is a young woman with a work ethic and was contributing to society, and to have someone, you know, just so egregiously and viciously just snuff her out like that. And the mayor, you know, the figurehead, the person we all look to in this city for leadership, if she's going down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, she did her course correction and you know, I've been there, done that, the stroke job, and we're going to pivot now. But your first inclination is usually the right inclination. And I just think that was a real testament to just her void in leadership. That's just my opinion.
Okay. So then when you were the comms director for the city, would you have been the person talking to that mayor at that time if you were in that position at the time of that homicide?
There have been occasions, you know, during, you know, we had, I'm not going to call it public unrest anymore now that I don't work for that department. We had riots. And I had a direct pipeline to the city manager and the mayor. I don't know who is chirping in the mayor's ear currently. Whatever advice, whatever strategy, if you want to call it a strategy, she had gotten from this person was ill-advised, and I'm being generous.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the overall message, whether it be mental health or just criminal recidivism, and Pete says this all the time, and I'm going to let him weigh in. You all want new laws, and especially as it relates to guns, although this wasn't a gun incident, but you don't even prosecute what's currently out there. And Pete, nobody knows it more than Pete, that you're not even aggressively pursuing the thing. And so Pete, I'll let you jump in on this. Like, there's nobody more of an advocate for prosecutions than Pete, because he saw it firsthand in Arizona with his Fast and Furious stuff. And so Pete, go, man.
Look, Tommy, where there's no consequences, evil people are going to do bad things. And when someone gets, I believe he was arrested 13 or 14 times. His own family was shocked that he was out in the streets. You got to put people in jail. I get it. We can't. I hate when you say we can't arrest our way out of a situation. Yes, you can, and we proved that in the Bronx with where the 600 murders went down to like roughly 230 murders, because we put the really violent people away in federal prison for a while. You can't let violent people just keep returning to the street, because what happens is it emboldens them. That girl would have been alive had he sat in jail for the things that he should have sat in jail for. I don't know why a lot of our elected leaders are so gun shy. You know, like you said, the whole concept, we can't arrest our way out of it. I get it. You want to arrest everybody. But there are some people who are just prone to violence who need to sit in prison, period, full stop, to save lives. I get it. Then the jails become dangerous. But you know what? Then be a good person, don't go to jail. But come on.
All right, so hold on a second. So I went to a Harvard Kennedy School, thought leadership piece in Boston like 15 years ago, where Bratton.
Was it SMIP?
No, that's Southern Police Institute.
No, that's Perf. Perf has a senior management. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's Perf.
They make you drink the liberal Kool-Aid there. I hate that.
Pete, don't get going on Perf. Don't get going on
Let
Perf.
me tell you something. When I was the head of training for ATF, Perf was preaching that we're no longer warriors, we're guardians. The warrior became taboo, right? Because it was bad to say. I severed ATF's relationship with them for training. But yes, Smith was one. I think it was like $50,000 per head to go to that, because you had to pay for lodging, you had to pay for the course. I severed ties. Pissed a lot of people off, because a lot of people wanted to go to that training. But I thought they were, forgive me for saying it, pussifying the police departments.
I went.
Yeah.
I went. It was
Did you
like
pay $50,000?
4 or 5 weeks. Well, my department did. They sent me through. I went through the senior management policing up there. It was through Harvard, and
Chuck
Right.
Wexler, the carnival barker.
What's that?
Chuck
Wexler
Wexler
is a carnival barker.
And had horrible breath when I was sitting next to him at the Red Sox game.
That's so good. That is so good. But anyway, getting back to this, like I went to some one-day event and the Kennedy Harvard School of Police, whatever the hell they thought they were doing. And it was Bill Bratton when he was the chief of LAPD and Baca when he was the sheriff of LA sheriff. And they said, Pete, that's the first time I ever heard them say, anybody said, we can't arrest ourselves out of a problem. And I was like sitting there in the audience going, no, you can't arrest the entire problem, but you sure can make a big freaking dent. And like, what the fuck? And then, so now let's give me one more second, Rob. And then fast forward to, all right, we can't arrest everybody, but we have precision policing. We're going to focus. We're data driven. We have so much more knowledge. We can focus on the really worst of the worst. Okay, well then fucking do that. Then do that. But you're not doing that either.
No. And again, they're gun shy about prosecution. You can identify the really bad people, but if you can't take them off the street, shovel shit into the tide.
Yeah.
You know, it surprises me that Bratton would have taken that kind of approach, given, you know, his earlier position on broken windows theory. It was all about, you know, really focusing in on the small quality of life issues, taking the squeegee guys off the streets, taking the guys pissing in vestibules, jumping the turnstiles. Arresting our way out of it seemed to work out pretty well in the 90s. You know,
something happens to these guys. Yeah, I think I might have told you this, Tommy, but you wouldn't know this, Rob. You know, when I was a group supervisor in Phoenix, we started this violent crime impact team in Mesa, Arizona. And to do that, because if feds are going to work with the locals, you're going to have a task force. You have to sign memorandums of understanding. You probably know this, Rob, from when you were with the PD, because I know they have a lot of task forces. I mean, it requires the buy-in of the chief. They gave us office space, right? We were out there crushing it in Mesa, Arizona. Do you know who the chief of the Mesa, Arizona Police Department was at the time? And this guy, I would meet with him weekly.
I know.
He would be like, oh, did you hear about that foot chase? Oh, my God, great job. It was George Gascon. George Gascon was the chief of police in Mesa, Arizona, was gung-ho about going out there and arresting people and foot chases and the occasional, you know, what happens at the end of a foot chase. Then all of a sudden, look at him now. He's a commie. So what you wonder, I think Bratton kind of pivoted too. It makes you wonder what changes them.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Bratton fan on the whole, because I was an original transit police and he came in and cleaned everything up. And I will say that Jack Maple whispered in his ear and was the real brains behind everything, because I saw Jack Maple doing robbery, which was eventually the predecessor to CompStat. He was doing robbery meetings in the late 80s, long before CompStat was even an idea and a thought. And so I'm going to say the seed planted was Jack Maple in Bratton's ear. He told him to run with it. John Tan and a whole bunch of other people who deserve a lot of credit, which I could run a long list of people who developed CompStat, and the oversight and the accountability that was definitely tremendously needed in the New York City Police Department at that time. That being said, I'm a big Bratton fan. I was Bratton Transit, Bratton 1.0. Bratton 2.0 in the NYPD was a different guy. And the day that I saw it different was when he sat down with all the perf and the major city chiefs and they endorsed Hillary Clinton for the presidency. Mm. And although Trump, I could see why they wouldn't have endorsed Trump, but Hillary Clinton was not a police lover. Okay. And so all you really did was endorse who you think was going to win, not someone who's going to support law enforcement.
I got a good Hillary Clinton story. Back in 2018, she was in the throes of a campaign. What was that? Was it 2020? Was that the election between her?
Hers was 2016.
2016. We had a riot. Imagine that, in town in 2016, and she was in the throes of a presidential campaign with President Trump.
Yep.
And gosh, we were under state of emergency for 2-3 nights, and one morning I had gotten a call from one of her campaign people and asked if if we thought it would be appropriate for her to come to town and help to diffuse some of the, the racial tensions in town, maybe speak with the police chief and do some community meetings. And I knew, I'm not a political wonk, but I'm smart enough to know when somebody wants a photo op. She's just coming here for a photo op. So, I'm shooting the shit with the police chief at the time, and we're kind of laughing about the whole idea of her coming in, and so he's like, "No, we don't want to politicize this." I'm like, "Absolutely not." So I said, "Hey, chief, it would be kind of cool. What if we called the Trump campaign? Asked if he would join the Clinton campaign. Both camps come to town. All of us sit down with the community. Surely, if these two could put their differences aside, I think that would send just a tremendous message around the world that we can all put our differences aside and look out for the greater good." So I called. He's like, "Give it a shot. What the hell?" I called back to the Clinton camp, and I'd already spoken with the Trump camp. They were on the fence. They wanted to see what the Clinton camp was going to do. Clinton camp, they wouldn't go for it. They said, "No, he's going to exploit it, this, that, and the other thing." Politics, baby, politics all day, every day.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so that's why I'm down on Bratton and his 2.0. I think what he did was, and again, my opinion, no empirical data to support the facts, to support my opinion, but he came to the NYPD to get elevated back again. Then he left real quick, jumped on the Hillary Clinton, went to Tenio, and did the endorsing. He was expecting to ride that federal ride with Hillary Clinton, and she lost, and his gambit fell apart. And I'm just an idiot in Charlottesville, Virginia. I don't know, but like if you look and see the jumps that he made and the endorsement of a cop hater, Hillary Clinton, a straight up cop hater. Whatever. That's where we're at. But anyway, let's get back to Rob. I want to hear what it's like when shit's hitting the fan in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, and you got to fucking massage the message, get it out, protect the cops, protect the city, but also give transparency and what the community deserves. Because again, I am not endorsing, telling the community, don't tell them. Like, it is what it is. It plays out, but the cops get the benefit of the doubt. They got the toughest job in the world. They got the most noble job in the world. Not anybody who wants to be a critic, you should walk in their shoes for 5 minutes and see what it's really like. But that being said, shit does go sideways. Like, talk us through the amount of pressure on something really bad that goes down, a cop shooting. It has racial overtones. And how do you message? How do you make sure everyone is satisfied? Because we could talk about Ferguson. We could talk about a whole bunch of disasters. And I'd love to hear which ones you think were the worst communications disasters too. So, like, just let it rip, man.
Well, it is. It's a needle thread. You said, how do you ensure that you're making all parties happy or satisfying all parties? If that's what you're setting out to intend to do, you're going to be just sadly disappointed, because you're never going to make everybody happy. And it took me a long time to understand that. I tried to twist myself in knots trying to satisfy everyone, and subsequently nobody was satisfied. Ultimately at the end of the day. But there's so many moving pieces and stakeholders and interests that need to be mindful of, and that's what I like about it, though. That's the part I like. I like the strategy and the chess moves, and all right, if I move this piece now, 2 or 3 moves down the board, am I screwed? What am I doing? It. So I just somebody says, "Oh, you're so passionate about this." I border obsession on a lot of this. It's a problem, but we were in the throes of a couple of really bad riots following officer-involved shootings, and then we had the whole the Floyd mess that kind of cooked off too. Lessons, just some tremendous lessons that we had messaging one night, and it was all being caught on live camera during the riots. A bunch of tactical guys. Did you ever hear the term kettling? it's essentially the theory is you corral a bunch of people into an area that they can't out, you gas them, and that's, how media, that's how they advance the story. And, maybe there was some truth to that after the video was released, but all of this is unfolding on live television, and, you're getting blown up on Twitter, and you're getting the phone calls, and you're trying to manage, the situation itself, and all these new details that are coming in on this kettling situation. And then, another night, in the midst of all the violence, gunshots ring out, and you had a demonstrator, and it breaks my heart. Justin Barr, this kid shot in the head, good kid. I think he was a culinary student, never been in trouble before. He thought, there was some kind of injustice that was being perpetrated. He wanted to come out there and voice his, voice his opinion. Got friggin' plunked right there in the head. Chief was on live with Megyn Kelly on Fox at the time. I had to yank him off the live set, and we had to go out to there to the scene. So it's just, the presidential politics and all of it, and just all of it creeping in at one time. It's like herding cats, man. It's balls in the air, and again, trying to satisfy everyone's interest is just an exercise in futility.
So if you're threading the needle and you can't do it, do you just lean into saying, I got to protect the city and the agency, and, at least I'll make somebody happy?
Yeah, I mean, there's always something to say.
Right.
We were talking, if I'm not overstepping, before I went in the green room, we were talking about the sergeant case, and with NYPD, one who impersonated the ICE agent. How difficult that must be to message. Not really. I mean, it's almost a template. It's a federal case, so NYPD can't get into the the nuances of the investigation. It's not their investigation, right? They don't want to do anything to impede that independent investigation that's being conducted by the feds. They're aware of it. They're cooperating with the feds. His conduct, or what he's accused of, certainly isn't representative of the overwhelming majority of men and women who serve with who serve admirably. I mean, it's better than no comment. I'd rather say that than to say, go talk to the feds. It's not our case. There's always something to say.
All right. So you gave us a lead in, like the stress and the pressure that leaders feel coming from all of this. Like, what does that feel like coming in? You're in the room, you're about to go to the press conference, you're messaging. Like, how much is it, like, compared to what? Like, what do you compare it to?
I've worked with countless police chiefs through the years, and what really strikes me is they all come in looking so spry, young and energetic and vibrant. By the second, third year, these men are haggard and just cooked. I say it for every year sitting in that chair is like a dog year for those guys. It really is. Being on the line back in NYPD, I had no appreciation for what the executives of the organization were up against. I didn't. I just didn't. But having a front row seat to the pressure, and the pressure is immense on these leaders, immense. It's impressive to watch the way most of them are able to navigate it and manage it. Some of them, though, it's the divorce and the drinking and the drugs, and you just some of it just becomes unsustainable for some of them.
That's really funny.
So being that you were a police officer, obviously you weren't a ranking officer in the NYPD, and now you have this media experience, and now you're giving advice to these people who are high-ranking folks. What were the challenges of that? I mean, were there any challenges when you're dealing with people who are like police chiefs, city managers, right? And here you were like me, a knuckle dragger. You were out there doing police work. You weren't at that level. Like, was there pushback frequently, or do you think they were more open to it because you weren't an executive, or neither?
I think at the beginning, at the beginning, I think there was, I remember butting heads with a number of police chiefs at the onset, and I think that I wasn't a known quantity then as much as I am now. Now, very selective about who I bring on as a client. I downsized tremendously. I've only got a handful of clients. I intend to keep it that way just for my mental health and work life balance. But yeah, at the beginning, there was some of that, now I find, I'm getting calls in the middle of the night. How would you manage this? How would you manage that? It's these relationships that you cultivate with these men, and they almost see you as, as a life preserver, that they're not on this island by themselves, that they've got somebody to help them put strategy and plans together, work on what needs to be worked on, so he can protect, or she can protect, his or her reputation while protecting the reputation of the organizations.
Gotcha. That's good. It's good they trust you.
Yeah. So I think the rank and file who listens to the channels here on the Finance Unfiltered, there's not. I don't know that the chat is, except for the trolls who are all anonymous, which I find funny. Is like you see a whole bunch of people with their real names and their chat and everything, and then you see a whole bunch of people with pseudonyms and everything. It's really funny, and it's fantastic. But you know what? I, being as a squad commander in the 7-9, I started to appreciate more of those pressures, and especially from DCPI or PIOs and the rest of the country. Like, why does the NYPD have Deputy Commissioner of Public Information, but every other agency in the country has police information office, right? They have to do everything different, right? So, but like the message is really tough. And you talked about all of this stuff, the pressures, and we hear that in the dog years, like, but man, like it's just so massive. But for me, why wouldn't they let me talk to the press? Because I can manipulate the conversation about a sensational homicide or a sensational criminal investigation, that I know the details and I know what I want to keep out and I want to know what I can keep in. And so why did they force me to push everything up to them? And then when I call up the reporter, Michelle McPhee or Larry Salona in the New York Post, and I say, why the fuck did you write that? That's bullshit. It's fucking wrong. You got it wrong. And they go, well, there was no comment. There was no comment from you. There was no comment from DCPI. They didn't have information yet right now. And I said, but that's dog shit. And they go, well, we had to go with something.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
Why won't they let us talk? Why don't they school us? Why don't they educate us and media prep us so that we know what to say, what not to say, what to hold back, what not to hold back?
And that's how many departments that I work with are doing it. It sounds, and I don't know if this is still the position of the, but they were, it was a control thing. I mean, they adopted a policy of one message, one voice. They didn't find value in developing anybody out in, all the boroughs and all the different specialized units and things like that. So it's, you get the same people saying the same things over and over again. If I'm, so most of the departments I work with, they don't take that approach. I come in and I'll work with them. I'll train their chief and his assistant chiefs and, command staff. And if, maybe a couple of detectives from, some of the violent crime units, just so he has the chief has a stable of trained, versed, confident communicators to march out anytime something cooks off. I don't want to hear, as much as I love Tish, and I think she's a great commissioner. If I live in one of these boroughs and, one of these precincts and something cooks off, and I want to hear from the people that I see at my community meetings. I want to hear from the people that I see, supervising the men and women who are patrolling my neighborhood, not someone down at the Ivory Palace, with the Puzzle Palace. That's, one of these executives. And I love her, and don't mistake what I'm saying. I think she's doing a tremendous job, but I think it's very myopic still to this day, the way they go about putting strategy together around communications. It just baffles me.
Yeah, I was allowed to talk to the media as a first line supervisor. I had a PIO in Phoenix who was awesome, and he would remind me of some talking points. He was very good at what he did. He was very connected. But yeah, they let me speak a lot. There are some agencies that won't let you speak. I think NYPD had a big control problem. I think it got worse under Kelly, but it just is what it is. I think, hey, it's the same reason they have hammerless guns. They don't trust cops.
Well, you know,
The
You know what I
Hamels
mean?
goes, this is a good one.
yes.
It's a good
But
one.
I find that surprising with Kelly, given the fact that, you know, his son was a journalist, you know, so you would think that he'd see the value in the work that they do and the importance
Operative
of
word was.
Yeah.
He flipped in the last couple of weeks, said some crazy things.
Greg Kelly?
Like, no, Greg. Yeah, Greg Kelly.
Did he really?
Endorsing Cuomo.
Oh, well, I mean, you had to. What were you going to do? You had to. What
Sit
were
it
you
out. Sit it out.
It
And
was a
Curtis.
You couldn't. Look, I love Sliwa, you know, but that wasn't gonna. That's not gonna work in Manhattan, in New York. A Republican, come on.
No, so Rob, I get what you're saying, but the only one who's authentic was that. And so, and how could you endorse Cuomo and his father, who I love, Ray Kelly, as a police commissioner, by the way? They came out and endorsed Cuomo. Trump endorsed Cuomo. This is all crazy because of the things he did during COVID. And he is, by the way, the guy who built the parole board in New York State, who's released 40 plus cop killers. No, I'm sorry. You sit that one out. If you don't like Sliwa and you can't do Sliwa, I won't begrudge you for not going with Sliwa for the reasons you probably could articulate for hours. But then you don't say Cuomo. You sit that fucking thing out. That's crazy.
Maybe it's maybe it's a lesser of the two evils thing. You know, desperate times call for desperate
measures. Yeah.
You know, as unfriendly as Cuomo's been to cops, you know, I shudder to think of what this cat is going to.
It's going to be the same thing. It's going to be the same exact thing.
It'll be worse, Tommy. Here's a guy who doesn't want to enforce misdemeanor violations, which assault is a misdemeanor violation. So is sexual abuse. Here's a guy who wants to empty out Rikers Island. That dude is insane. I feel bad for New York. I hope he.
Wait. Hold on. Again, I'm sorry. I'm going to let you finish. I didn't mean to step on you, Pete.
No, I'm just saying he's crazy. The things he's articulated are absurd. Cuomo's a politician. He's an asshole. But, I mean, at least he articulated some things that made sense. I don't trust him either. No, it's a mess. But New York's
all right. So I believe de Blasio and Eric Adams also wanted to empty Rikers. Like, they all want the same thing. John and Eric say the same thing. It's the 3-card Mondami. It's the same. They're all the same. They're all the same. And, you know, just because he has the moniker of the DSA, Mondami, he's got the same policies. He's going to continue the same progressive craziness. That's not what's going to happen here. That's going to be wildly different. It's going to be the same thing. And what I will say, where I could be wrong, is I would have thought things that de Blasio tried to pull and Adams tried to pull would have been perceived as lunacy, and they actually went forward. And the like, you never paroled fucking cop killers, never. And you would have thought that was lunacy. And yet we've paroled over 40 cop killers in New York State since Cuomo took over. So I don't think it could get any with Mondami, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
We'll see.
Man, bro. All right. So listen, we've got we're 2 hours, 45 minutes in. Really interesting conversations. The PR hot seat, everything that you've done, Rob. Let's do your career real quick. I'm going to pull up some photos. You've been in front of the cameras. So let's talk about like your media stuff and then what you're doing nationally and globally. You don't have to name it, but I think it would be really cool to hear like in other continents and other international consultancies that you have. So it's kind of cool, you know?
Yeah. So I whittled down my clients to a manageable level. So I've got clients in Florida, Kentucky, Connecticut, a lot in the Carolinas, Minnesota, couple of international contracts with Liberia National Police in West Africa. There's a shot right there. Worked with them on just some institutional reform. They got a new inspector general that came in, was sworn in or appointed. And they have had a long history, Liberia did, of just, corruption, police corruption. That was kind of the mantra where how that's how everybody identified that particular police department. And they had new culture, new leadership, that new inspector general, and they wanted to do some overhaul, some things, community engagement things, media relations things. So I worked with them for about a year or so. Wonderful. I mean, I think I learned more than I delivered. The thing I think I learned most was humility when I worked with them. Such an impoverished country. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I mean, the squalor, filth, the sanitation. They don't have working sanitation systems. Their fiscal affairs were just upside down, so much so that when I was in town, some of their police commanders hadn't been paid in weeks, if not months, and they were going to get it retroactively, but there were budget constraints, and they had some kind of fiscal challenges. But here's the thing: I remember, and it could bring me to tears just thinking about it. I remember one of the days that I was there, we were working with the embassy people and the Liberia National Police, and the embassy folks catered a lunch for us at one of these hotels in town and in Liberia. And there was a young guy, I remember, good guy, had a young family, and I know he hadn't been paid in a while. I look over at the corner of the room where they had the lunch set up. He was packing up boxes and putting them in a bag. And I said, I bet you this guy is bringing this food home to his children and his family. You would have thought that this guy was one of the richest guys on the face of the planet. So optimistic, a smile that could just light up the damn room, just so positive about everything. Here I am back in the States, and I'm pissing and moaning that I can't get a freaking Wi-Fi signal. And this guy, probably hasn't fed his children. His lights probably are turned off. And he thinks he's the richest guy in the world. I mean, just humbling, and really puts things into context. Just so.
So so when I was working for an LPR company, we branched out internationally, and I had a gentleman working for me, and we got an opportunity to launch an LPR camera system in Western Africa. And so that included Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, right, and Ghana. So same region, right? And I'm like, all right, well, we've got a budget. We can put people up, and they're in their hotels, and it's not going to be that bad. So I talked to him, and I said, Kevin, the UK. He's like, yeah, I'll go. I've been all over the world. He was an FBI agent. He goes, I've been all over the world. I've seen all of these places. So he lands home, and he says to me, look, the hotel was fine. He goes, but the facilities where the cops worked, he goes, I had to bring my own 5-gallon bucket to flush the toilet.
Yeah. That's so.
I was like, oh, man, that's so.
That's how they did it at headquarters.
No, I know.
At police headquarters, they had those buckets. They were rolling blackouts. When I was at headquarters with strategy meetings, we had to wait till the lights came back on a couple of times.
Yeah,
it's incredible. You just don't even. I didn't even think there were places like this left on the planet.
Exactly. And so that's why I want to say, criticize the United States of America all you want. It's the greatest country in the world, the greatest human experiment in the world, and don't take it for granted. Don't ever forget it, people. So, So where else have you done around the globe? I mean, you rattled off the states and the cities, but where else across the country, across the world?
Burkina Faso, Senegal.
Oh, yeah.
Thailand, did a lot of work with the Royal Thai Police in Bangkok. That was more crisis communications. They had new leadership, new executives. They wanted them all trained up on how to communicate during a crisis. So we spent a couple of weeks out there working with them on crisis communications, reputation management, and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what else you got. So a couple of other media opportunities, always in front of the camera, looking slick, all tight. Got a 2-button suit, top one buttoned, bottom one unbuttoned. So you're dressing sharp, looking good. You got collar collar ties down so your collar's not bouncing up. Looking good.
Yeah, it felt good too. Yeah, the rolling lapel, my little Brooks Brothers going there.
Yeah.
Good shoes. I can, but that beat me up too. You guys are all gonna think I'm a basket case by the end of the broadcast, but that chewed me up too, really, really bad. Again, I started with the swagger again and with the ego again. And I mean, I'm working 13, 14-hour days. I'm never coming home. And then when I am home, I'm home briefly and I'm on a plane. I'm going to Ohio or somewhere else working with another department. And that's why now it's just so important to me to really have a handle on my bandwidth and managing, my work-life balance, because I'm not going to lie, dude. It was getting really, really, really dicey there, so much so, and just so, if I'm being honest, just really shitty too. Like I remember my wife was a stay-at-home mom, and I'd come home, at the end of 13, 14-hour day, press conferences I'm doing with the department or whatever. And she's trying to tell me, oh, I had an issue with the dryer today. And I'm like, I'd look at her and I'd say something like, that's a friggin' issue. I just spent a couple of hours with the mother of a young woman who was beaten to death by a hammer, getting her prepped for a press conference. And you're telling me about a dryer? So what kind of message does that send to my wife? If my issues don't meet the level of someone being beat to death with a hammer, he doesn't want to freaking hear about it. I'm just so shitty. Just really, really shitty. Really shitty.
No, you're right.
Yeah, but it's good that you're keeping check on it. You know what I mean? Like you're cognizant of it. Nobody's perfect, man. I mean, the fact that you bring it under control. And look, we all have a tendency of spinning a little bit out of control from time to time. It's the gift of being able to rein it back in that helps people stay sane. So good for you, brother.
Yeah. But it's
exactly.
Rough and tumble business. Rough and tumble business for sure. Especially for someone who's not tethered or wasn't tethered to discipline.
Yeah, interesting. So Rob, you got two pictures you shared with us. One behind big cameras, big lights, teleprompter, and then the other one, I'm not sure. Is that just looks like a police department? Maybe just doing a training session or something.
What department that's with? But I'm sure I'm just training some executives there with one of the departments around the country.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then I got one more back to, I guess it's Liberia. Yeah,
that's him. That's Garza. That's the guy I was telling you about with the the good-looking guy with the family that was packing up the food. That's him right there. Good man.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty fun. I'm sure it was really rewarding, like you said, and to have that experience cutting across continents, going to Africa, going to Asia. Pretty cool. All right, so we're at 8:52. We're going to start wrapping up unless anyone, we're at 415. Pete, I'm going to mute you. Sorry, buddy. For some crazy reason, we're getting reverb. It bounced in and out tonight. We had it a lot early in the season, like episodes like 1 through 5, and then it didn't. Maybe it's the hotel. Pete's in a hotel, everyone. Someone said something about Pete and having a shitty mic. Pete's in a hotel tonight. He's traveling. He's committed to the 10-4 Tavern. He'll do it anywhere. He'll do it on a plane if he has to. Now that all the planes have Wi-Fi, so
I'll do it from the bathroom. But you don't want that, Tommy.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
As long as you're by yourself, buddy, it's okay. Oh, can I just tell you guys? I'm a million miler on Delta. And I actually have about 1.5 million, but they don't acknowledge that. They only in million increments. And they say, we'll customize your tags for you. And so I have, they said, what name do you want on these metal tags? And so I sent it back to Delta and I said, Commander Mile High. And it's so funny. I got a hint. And then my wife is like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing it? I go, because it's like a joke. Like, that's the best they can do for me is give me personalized name tags. So I'm going to tool on them. If they're going to tool on me, I'm going to tool on them, right? And so I saw someone reading it the other day, but they didn't. And I was like, say something. Come on, say something. Please say something. But they didn't say anything. You get shit, by the way, for flying. I don't care how many miles you got. I don't care how much status you got, unless you're the elite of the elite, man. I've been flying 1.5 million miles on Delta, another 500,000 on every. I got 2 million miles. I'm still sitting. First class is coach is Greyhound. That's all I'm going to say. So, but anyway, I'm just teasing. I similar to you, Rob. I've been blessed with being able to travel around the world and around the country, meet cops from every state and many countries, and just I love them all. So dedicated, so committed to the mission. Couple of questions about how they actually were able to find handcuffs and put them on somebody, but not many. But all of them truly dedicated. So I'm blessed. I'm truly blessed. With that, so we're at 8:55. We're 421 live. Again, steady climb. No declines. So we're right what we expected for the live viewership. So that's really great. Really appreciate that, Rob. Great story. So I'm going to leave it to you, Rob. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to share with the audience? Again, we got active cops. We got retired cops, mainly from the Northeast and New York City and surrounding areas. Yonkers, Nassau, Suffolk County, New Jersey. Then so again, that is going. Anything you want to share with the cops about what's going on, the pendulum, which way that pendulum's swinging, keep their heads up, any encouraging words, and then I'll go to Pete, and then I'll do the housekeeping wrap up.
No, I'm optimistic. I can't say that that's the position I was coming from a few years ago. I was kind of demoralized, if I'm being entirely honest, but I'm optimistic. I do. I think the pendulum is coming back in the other direction. Maybe had to swing so far in the other direction to build enough momentum to get back to at least center, but it's gratifying to see that support is starting to pick back up again. People are starting to tell the stories, the good stories, the positive stories, the heroic stories again, and it's not all just, what did they screw up this time? Whose rights did they take away? All the typical BS that we've seen. So that's reassuring. What I hope is that this new influx of optimism, that it's going to translate into, recruitment and retention. I honestly, and I'm not a hyperbolic guy, the sky's falling. It really is of grave concern to me when I work with a lot of these departments from around the country and I see this vacancy rate and they just can't shore it up. Something's got to give. And, what I hope doesn't give is we start watering down standards and for applicants just to fill these, these barren voids that we have in a lot of these departments now. So I started off optimistic, but then I wound up in the pessimistic camp. But no, all in all, I'm optimistic, and I think our the profession's better days are coming. I see an influx of young people grabbing the mantle, some sharp people who are in it for the right reasons. So there's a lot to be optimistic about, I think.
Good. That's good to hear. Pete, off mute.
No, look, I agree. I think there's certain pockets in our country that are dug in a little bit. It's going to take them a little while to dig out and get along with that pendulum. But I would even say at my old agency, we had some dead weight running it for a while. We got a good guy at the top, Bobby Cicada. But there's a new wave coming up behind them of people who actually wanted to lead, people that went out there and did the job. So I agree. I mean, it ebbs and flows. We were just in a really bad period for a while, but I agree with Rob. I think better days lie ahead. And just, having the patience to be willing to wait till we get there, I think. And then look, once the pendulum swings and the right people are in there, then we need to be really bold and really loud about supporting them. You know what I mean? Because, that's the thing. It was still saying heavy lies the crown. It's not easy being out there making decisions, doing things, putting yourself out there. When you're doing it right, you need to be supported. Because God knows there's a lot of people, the critics out there that never did the job, but are really quick to point fingers at others and demonize them for doing the right thing in many instances. So,
yeah, well, Marlon, Wayne, and absolutely Pete. So, pretty awesome stuff. My concern is if you have recruitment starting to creep up again, where good candidates are coming in, they're actually getting hired, but the gap and the void that we have are the leadership, the people we all looked up to. and said, that's the person I want to emulate and follow and learn. Like, who are they learning from right now? And so you might have a bunch of really good cops come in, the men and women who want to do the job, but they're not going to be taught the right way. So do they figure it out for themselves and then become that good leader? And then that second generation after them benefits from that? Or are they devoid of that leadership and then could have been great and then fail and fall because they didn't have the people in front of them? So it's a really tough place. And, you know, Pete and I both have kids on the job, and, you know, in these law enforcement capacities that, you know, I worry for them, you know?
Yeah. How can you not? How can you not? You should do a show, just one, and I think it's a standalone show by itself, is on recruitment and retention. And more importantly, where I see, and I know you got to run, but
no, we're good. We're good.
The PTOs, these police training officers or field training officers, you know, there's got to be a lot more consideration given to who you're filling those roles with. You know, I see just glaring, egregious. I was in an elevator not too long ago in one of the departments I work with, heading upstairs, and there was a brand new officer just out of the academy with her field training officer. They were heading up to the 4th floor. I think they were heading to IA. But she, you know, her collar brass was blinding you, her core fram shoes, and she was so full of, you know, just enthusiasm. And she brought something up to this field training officer in the elevator, and he's like, "Oh, fuck this, excuse me, you know, F this, F that." You know, you could literally see the wind coming out of the sails of this young troop. And then it begs the question, you know, this is her first touch point with the department, with the profession, somebody she's going to lean on for insight, for mentoring, for guidance. And this is the best that they've got. What is she going to be left with at the end of this field training? You know, it can't be, you know, oh, he's a good guy, let's make him an FTO, he's put his time in. There's got to be a rigorous vetting system, in my unbiased or maybe biased opinion, before you start putting people in these positions. It's egregious. It really is.
Yeah, and some of those same people you described have moved up into mid-management. So you get that same curmudgeon shitting on everything, and it's a cancer. It spreads. Absolutely. So yeah, you're entirely correct. It's not just the field training officer; it's the leaders too. Yeah. A lot of non-leaders leading right now.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
What do they say? One good Saturday, take the test, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I had 2 good Saturdays, by the way. So just so you know, and one bad one, and one bad one, and one really bad one. I got a 50 on the captain's exam, and I told everyone I got a 50. And they were like, "Oh my God, that's the worst fucking score I ever heard." And I go, "No, I'm the only one telling the truth. Everyone else said they failed by a point, right?" The 2 biggest lies on the NYPD: my commute's less than an hour, and I only failed the promotion exam by 1 point. No, I failed by like 22 fucking points. And they were like, and they go, "Tommy, that's the worst score I ever heard. A 50 on the captain's exam." And I go, the way I look at it, I got half of them right, and I didn't even study. Like I thought that was pretty. I thought that was pretty good. So anyway, all right, Pete, Rob, stay on. We're gonna do the green room afterwards to just clean up, but hang out with us, and we're gonna just clean up here. So Pete, your book, go for it, man.
Yeah, Deadly Path, the real story behind Operation Fast and Furious, not the Democrat version, not the Republican version. It's what really happened, boots on the ground, what I actually saw, what I experienced. And it's on Amazon. It was on the bestseller list for a while. But yeah, enjoy.
All right. So tomorrow night, 5:05 p.m. Eastern, we got Rob and Ron, but Ron is traveling, so Eric Dim is going to fill in for Ron Layson tomorrow night, 5:05. NYPD Surviving Zoran Mondami. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but they'll do a deep dive into this. They'll talk about how the Mayor Mondami's policies affect the day-to-day response to calls for service at the local levels. They'll talk about specialized units such as the Strategic Response Group and the Counterterrorism. Will they make the cut? So we have that tomorrow night at 5:05. That's Wednesday. And then Sal Greco, Tuesday and Thursday, did a show today. So go back and watch today's show. I'm sorry, the aviation, I didn't clean it. That was last week's show. but I apologize. But every Tuesday and Thursday, the Sal Greco show, 1:05 p.m. Eastern time. And then every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8:05 for Eric, John, and Marlon in the mornings, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. If you want to follow the Finest Unfiltered on YouTube, it's at The Finest Unfiltered. And then for Pete and I, the 10-4 Tavern on X, at 10-4 Tavern. Pete and I are most prominent on LinkedIn. That's where you'll find us doing most of our activity at 10-4 Tavern Podcast, and then Instagram and Facebook at 10-4 Tavern. So, Rob, thank you very much. Rob is on X, so you'll find him at Rob Media, I believe. But you can find our posts on X, and you can see Rob. We tagged them this week, so if you want to follow Rob, please do so. Any final thoughts, guys? Anything? Because we're going to wrap it, and I'm going to go outro right now, and then Rob, stay for the after.
Thanks for coming on, Rob. I hope our paths cross at some point in the future. I'd love to grab a beer with you, brother. Great episode. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for all the
Pete,
help.
Yeah, good.
Best to you and your family. Christmas, Thanksgiving, right around the corner. Best to
well.
you guys. What you got, Tommy?
No, I was just going to say, we got 21 episodes, and we keep saying we're going to get beers and have cocktails with these people off the studio, and man, we got a lot of beers.
We got to make it happen, brother. We got to make it happen.
Yeah. Sorry, and I apologize for stepping. Like the delays are, they are what they are. But so let me just great show. Thanks, Jimmy. Finest Unfiltered Executive Perspective. Zoran Mandami tomorrow. Nothing else from the chat, so we're gonna wrap it up. All right, everybody. Rob, stay on. We're gonna wrap up at the end after the song. Good night, everybody. Stay safe.